Hello, I'm Lee Povey from Maximize Your Potential Coaching, and today we're going to talk about the relationship between confirmation bias and dogma and how these things are holding us back from really experiencing the world in its fullness and from being the great people and leaders that we could be. So confirmation bias is looking for evidence that supports a position that you already hold. And in today's world with the internet, it's so easy for us to do this. It doesn't matter how extreme the position is that we hold, there's likely to be somebody else in the world that holds that same position as us. And even if all of our research only finds one person that thinks the same way we do, we are predetermined to hold on to that belief. And that's because we've come at these beliefs irrationally. It's an emotive belief. It's not something we've reasoned ourselves into. It's an emotive belief that we then look for logical and reasoned arguments to support. And because we already hold this position and belief, we don't tend to do a very good job of vetting that information and making sure that information is correct. And I came across this a lot in my sporting life as a coach. You'd speak to athletes, you speak to coaches, and you'd say, why do you do this particular type of training? And they'll say, well, that's because this is what I did before and I got good results with it. Yet when we look globally at training is always advancing. People are trying new training methodologies. We're finding better ways of doing things. Even now our understanding of the human body is actually quite limited, and there's a long way for us to go to really be efficient in what we're doing in prescribing training as coaches and doing training and giving feedback as athletes. And this goes to everything. This goes to the decisions that we make in business. This goes to the way that we behave in relationships. So we have that dogma. So the dogma is like, here is the perceived wisdom of how to do something. This is how it should be done. If we think back, there was a time in the world where people thought that the earth was the center of the universe and the sun and everything went around this. And people were actually put in prison, and people were, flogged, and people were ridiculed for saying this isn't true. And the sun is the center of our universe and the planets circle around the sun. And it took quite a long time for that scientific principle to become the general, the norm. And that happens all the time as new ideas are formed and as old ideas are challenged. So what can we do? What can we do to make sure that we're not hanging on to old ideas for the sake of hanging on to them because they feel comfortable to us and we have an emotional attachment to them? How can we be living a different way? So my offering to you is that we live with I am doing the best I can with the information I have right now model. So this means that we're open to this is just the best we can do right now. And if a better idea comes available, we're going to move to that better idea. That's how I approached cycling coaching, and that's how I approach my emotional coaching business. If somebody can show me a better way of doing it, and some data and some evidence, it's not just a, hey, you should do it this way because I think so, but here's some studies, here's some data. I'm going to move to that better way of doing things, or at least I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to take away from my prejudgment. I'm going to take away from my confirmation bias of this is what we've done before, this is where I'm comfortable, and I'm just going to truly investigate this new way of doing something. And that led to some real breakthroughs for my athletes. It led to some real breakthroughs for me as a coach, both emotional and as a sports coach, and me as an athlete, myself. I would experiment on myself, and then I would roll that out to the athletes that I worked with, and I used myself to try new ideas. And it was surprising how often those new ideas were actually pretty good and pretty powerful, especially when I was looking for the ones that were backed by research and real evidence. So my challenge to you is, what are some beliefs that you hang on to that are really emotional to you that if we took a step back and challenged them could likely be wrong or could likely be challenged? And what are you doing to advance the way that you do things? Are you having an idea and then looking on the internet for evidence that backs your idea? Or are you first looking for all of the different possibilities out there and then looking for where the evidence goes in those possibilities? And, this is one of the reasons why we see ourselves so politically divided, because it is so easy to find somebody that agrees with you, no matter how extreme your position is. It's why we've seen a growth in the popularity of the Flat Earth movement, even though when they actually try to prove it, all of their experiments fail. But people want to belong. There's an emotional element to it. They want to belong to it. They want to believe it. So how can you remove yourself from this, dispassionately take that kind of overview of things and say honestly to yourself, am I being really emotional about this? Is this an irrational position I've got myself into? Or is there real evidence? Is there real data? I can tell you, when you take away the dogma, when you challenge your own confirmation bias, the world just seems like there's so much more possibility. It's more curious. There's more excitement, because things aren't set in stone. Things can change. You can be a different person. You can grow. You're not going to be that person that says, well, this is just who I am and the way that I do things. You can say, no, I can do things differently. I can behave differently in relationships. I can respond to challenges differently. I can respond openly instead of defensively. I can respond with curiosity. What's going on for you, instead of being defensive and thinking, why does this person not like me? So let us know in the comments. Again, love to hear about the things that you struggle with, like where's your confirmation bias? What's the dogma that you've held on to? And what are the things you've moved past? What did you realize was not true? What did you realize has evolved? And what are you curious about? Thanks for listening, friends. Look forward to chatting to you again soon. Bye.